Hello and welcome to Talk Ag to Me, a podcast dedicated to improving ag literacy around the globe. I'm your host, Brandon Black, and here we have Abby Prince.
Hi guys, what's up?
So here we are for part 4 of our Ag Mythbusters mini-series.
Love this.
Hope you guys have been enjoying it.
These are so awesome.
I've been enjoying it a lot too. I think you guys gave some pretty interesting myths to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this episode we're just going to be continuing from the last episode. We got just the rest of the list to get through because we had a lot to get through.
Yeah, we did.
But and then we're going to have just one more part after this and we're going to be done with the mini-series.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
So
already.
So real quick, before we get into the episode, just make sure you guys comment down any more myths you think of. Make sure you're sharing the video wherever so we can get this information spread around because that's kind of the whole point of this thing. But you guys have just been really great in the comments and just getting all kinds of support from it, which I really appreciate, and I want to hear more from you guys. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Yes, let's do it.
All right.
I'm ready.
The comment or the myth that's going to be busted is that farmers and large farms are evil. That large farms, corporate farms, factory farms, all these things are just like incredibly bad for everybody involved. They're bad for the environment, they're bad for the animals, they're bad for the consumer. Everything about them is bad. They're
That's
all
hardcore.
And it's not something that is like mentioned once either. It's something that a lot of people have had issues with.
That's really sad.
So
that makes me sad.
Just to go off of a few comments, Chris Azevedo said all farmers and large corporations all farmers are large corporations and farmers are rich, which is a myth.
Not again. They do not all drive Range Rovers and have a mansion as a house.
Clint Crawford said, I had someone else tell me all farmers are rich and have tons of expensive toys.
Ooh, we talked about that one.
We did, but I want to bring it back up because she also mentioned, I told them the truth of this all is that farmers borrow millions of dollars, plant it in the ground, and pray to get water and good weather and actually produce a crop. They're the biggest gamblers in the world, and none of us would do it. So she kind of saves her myth there, which... that's why I kind of kept it around.
I really like that.
So, I'll let they're the biggest gamblers in the world be like.
I liked that.
I think that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
So, shout out to you, Clint Crawford.
Man, that was good. I don't know where you came up with that, but man, kudos to you.
And then Jamie Schultz, our favorite myther, is, she says large farms are bad. So just more of a simple one, but it's the same idea. Large farms, corporate farms, factory farms, all these things are bad. And then going over to the animal rights one, it's Factory Farms Equal Animal Abuse by Rebecca S. Potter. And then we have one more I want to tie into this before we cover all of it.
Holy cow.
And it goes back to our worker one by Joseph K., because I'm not going to say your last name again. And it's Ag exploits labor and treats them like slaves. So,
yikes.
Basically...
That's a conversation and a half.
It
all
is.
Of those together.
So basically, and we might have to actually continue this conversation into the next episode if need be, if we get above, like, let's say 40 minutes, because most of our episodes, I think the past two parts were 40 minutes each. So
say 40, 45.
Something like that. So we'll just kind of leave it there.
We'll watch the time.
If this gets to 45, then we'll cut it, but I don't think it will. So just to kind of bridge it all together, the myth that we're now busting is that large farms, corporate farms, factory farms, whatever you want to refer to them as, are bad, that they exploit workers, particularly illegal workers, and that they treat them like slaves, that they are the leading cause of all animal cruelty, that they are basically like vicious, like business tycoons.
My brain is so overwhelmed.
And that they are just like these like evil capitalists that are just out to make money and they don't care about their consumers. That's kind of what I can gather as being
right here. Does that hurt you?
It breaks my heart. It really does that people would think that. But it's one that I had to say for the end. I almost saved it for the last episode because it's such a big one.
Yeah.
But I decided since we don't have anything else and we're getting close to time, I figured just throw this one in there. It's one that I've actually had the conversation about a few times, and it's one that I've heard a few times, and it's one that a lot of people in there were very passionate about because everyone has a very, like, defensive image of their farmers because, obviously. But there's a good portion of people out there that think that farmers are one of two things. They're either Old MacDonald, who has a pail on one hand, pitchfork in the other, their overalls on, and their straw hat, and they're milking their one cow. And they also don't think that guy feeds the world. They think that he's just milking them for fun. Yeah. That's the only reason.
It's a good hobby.
Right. Or they think of farmers as they're not even actually farmers. They're like capitalist, like businessmen, all in suits that are just like running.
They've
like,
got a whip and a mask.
Yes, and they're running these like massive like factory farms with all these slaves that are pushing their cows through like these massive machines, and they're cramming them into cages, and all you've seen the videos on Twitter, and all the animal rights groups post all these pictures and images of and videos and stuff.
They twist stuff. Don't believe it.
Right. So that's kind of our task is to tackle that one.
Well, the way I'd like to come at this is think of a really, really big business like Apple or Google,
right,
or Amazon even.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that like as the head, the CEO is a farmer.
Right.
Are all the people working under him slaves?
No.
Are they exploited?
Nope.
So then why would a farming operation be any different?
Right.
Because those people are working for the CEO. The animals are working for the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
They're making money both ways.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I like to think of it. If you really think that farmers are like really doing all this harmful stuff, look at a big business that we have. It's the exact same thing. I would consider Amazon and Google and Apple all large.
Oh yeah, they're massive.
And they're huge.
They're bigger than any farm company I've ever seen.
And so if you think about it that way, like they're not using, they're using these people so then they can build their company and make it bigger. Farmers are doing the same thing.
Right.
But they're not exploiting their employees. Why would they do that? That means they're losing employees. They're losing great work.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then everybody else suffers in the process.
So I kind of want to go back to a point that you made a little bit earlier. It was something like 98% of farms are family owned.
Yes, 98% of farms are family owned and operated.
And so that's what's kind of funny is there's this massive misconception about what's a family farm and what's a corporate farm.
The 2% that's
not
family owned.
The 2%. And so there's always people that think that just because a farm is corporate or because it's huge that it's automatically like this factory farm evil place when really it's run by a family. It's just really big.
Yeah.
And the only reason, or not the only reason, but one of the reasons that a lot of these are starting to pop up now is because the economy is really hurting a lot of small farmers. Mm-hmm. Urban sprawl is hurting a lot of small farmers. The environmental changes lately with both regulations and actual like environmental issues like the drought and actual
horrible weather. Yeah, everything.
Natural disasters and whatnot.
Yeah.
All of those things combined are killing off small farmers' ability to farm.
Right.
And so that's causing larger farmers to come in and say, "Hey, I'll take it off your hands and I'll pay you handsomely so that you can live." Yeah. And because farmers want to help each other out, they're not people. Well, some do, but people. Like, they are competing because they are all businesses at the end of the day, but they're also a community. If one farmer goes out of business, all the other farmers are there trying to help him. Even if that farmer is like that, like, they're all in the same business.
Yeah.
The other farmers are trying to help them because that's how farmers are. If Apple goes out of business, Google's will be laughing at them.
They're all going to jump at Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
So it goes back to the idea that people think that just because a farm is big or because a company is big, that it automatically must be corrupt, and that's not true. It's just farms are getting bigger because small farmers can't afford to stay in business anymore.
Well, think about like the My Job Depends on Ag community. Like,
right.
If somebody puts something on there like, hey, I need help with whatever piece of equipment, like I need help with my tractor, there's something going on with it, it's making whatever this clanking noise is. Somebody on there more than likely will help you out.
Yeah.
It's not just like, you got screwed, so like, good luck.
Or, how much are you going to pay me to tell you to fix it?
Exactly.
Like, that's how, if you go to any Apple store or any, if you ask somebody online, how do I fix my iPad, they're going to say, all right, charge me, I'll fix it for you.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, that's not
Farming
how
is
farmers
not
are.
how that works.
No, farmers are just like, hey, I'll help you out if you help me out, kind of thing. Like, let's have a bond here. If you can't pay me back for a couple months, don't worry about it. I'll just be okay. And so that's kind of the first part that I wanted to break down. Moving into the animal rights part, 'cause I think that's one of the other biggest parts. Obviously, the workers is a really big part too. I'll get to that in a minute. But the animal rights one is one that I feel like is probably even more worried about today than the workers, which is kind of odd to think about.
Yeah, no, humans are more worried about animals than other humans. But that's kind of the same, like the large corporation, they're all going to go at each other. Mm-hmm. So
as far as the animal rights one goes, and I've studied animal rights for about 4 years now. I've studied it as a phenomenon. I've studied all the arguments. I've done my counter research to all of my points against it and everything, just to make sure I have a solid understanding of their ideology.
Yeah.
And basically, from what I can understand, just by watching all the videos, by visiting all the websites, by talking to people who support that kind of stuff, they think that farmers treat animals like tools instead of like actual living beings.
Interesting.
And I can see why they would think that, but it's sorely mistaken.
I agree.
So, and the argument that I have to that is that farmers are very unique in their method of production compared to every other company in the world, because they're the only company that works with living creatures.
I agree.
Every other company in the world doesn't deal with anything alive. They all deal with products. They all deal with things. They don't deal with animals or plants or anything, the environment. They don't deal with any of that. They all deal with just, paper or technology. So farmers have this unique task of understanding how biology works, of understanding how the environment works, of understanding how, creatures adapt and change over time. They have to understand nutrition. They have to understand mathematics and business and all these kind of things, on top of being able to actually be surviving members of like a corporation, according to the people that call them corporate farms. Like, they have to understand how that side of business works and how the ag side of business works, because they're very different. And so whenever people say that farmers treat their animals like tools instead of like animals, I don't think they understand that farmer is treating that animal better than probably his own kids half the time.
I mean, seriously, yeah.
Which sounds bad in on a surface level, but it just shows that farmers really care about their animals and their plants. Like, they can't afford to have animals die or get sick or get weak or...
Well, we were saying this last time too, like, in the dairy industry, like, those girls are treated like queens.
They are.
Because why lose them? Why would you like make that decision, like, this is a little risky, like, I could really lose a lot of animals? No farmer's gonna think like that. If that comes up, they're immediately being pushed aside. And in the trash can.
Yeah.
That's where that goes.
It's worth mentioning that there are farmers out there who mistreat their animals, who mistreat their workers, who perform agricultural practices incorrectly.
This is true, but this happens in all realms.
It happens
in any business.
It happens in any business.
Any business, no matter agriculture or not.
And I like to just state that a hefty majority of those farmers usually lose all their business like immediately, because they're not producing a good product. Their animals are stressed, so they're not producing well enough. Their workers are stressed, so they're not working to their full capacity. They're not fully sustaining the best of their product, because their animals just can't handle the living conditions.
Every industry has bad apples.
It does.
And agriculture is not the only one.
Right. And so to say that farmers are exploiting workers, that they're using their animals like tools instead of like living creatures, that they're just money hungry business tycoons, it's kind of, well, quite simply, it's just ignorant of how farmers actually live, because they rely so much on their animals and their workers being happy and working in a positive environment, because that's how they make their product the highest quality it can be. I mean, we talked about that in former episodes. I mean, there's a lot of livestock and dairy cannot produce their top quality product unless they're happy.
Right.
So it's just...
Well, and if you think about it this way, I mean, your life could change at any moment of any day, and farmers, they could lose it all tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, I mean, your job, more than likely, it's going to be there tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But, so, they, like you said earlier, they are the biggest risk takers and the biggest gamblers.
Yep.
So, there's no reason for them to be this big tycoon business, like, corporation. They're there to make money, have a good time doing what they love, producing a product that they love, and help feed everyone else.
Right, exactly. And to go back to Clint Crawford's point, and might have to wrap it up shortly after this unless you have more to add, but...
not that I know of.
Okay, well, back to Clint Crawford's point about them being the world's biggest gamblers, it makes no sense to me to say that farmers are rich and powerful and that they only farm because they're rich, because farming is possibly the hardest occupation you can have.
I agree.
And to say that because of all the hardships that farmers go through, because I was reading this article a few months back, it actually might have been a little bit longer than that by now, but it was about farmers. It was when all the fires were happening in like Oklahoma and Texas and all of them, and farmers were just losing massive amounts of livestock because they just couldn't save their farms fast enough.
Yeah.
There were plenty of like, there were farmers that were, like, just heartbroken about losing all their animals and about, like, all the farmers banded together in their community to try to help each other during that time. The animal rights activists weren't even out there helping the animals. They didn't care about the animals, but they were there complaining about how the farmers let their animals die. And I read this article that said farmers go through more heartbreak over losing animals than any other profession ever goes over losing anything.
I agree.
Because not only are their animals, I mean, yeah, they're a means to get money, but those are their children. Like, they raise those things from the ground up. And so
when they hit the floor, that's their kid.
That's their baby. Like, you can't treat that like it's a tool. Like, that's a living thing that farmers recognize as one of their own. And so, kind of just to wrap up there, people, like, whenever they say that farmers are rich, I always ask them, okay, well, why don't you farm then? Why don't you go do it? Because
I'm gonna use that next time, man.
Whenever people say, farmers are rich, corporate, capitalists, okay, well, why don't you farm then? If it's such a good gig, why aren't you doing it?
What do they say to you?
A lot of them are like, well, because I don't have the resources, or I wasn't born into a rich family. Okay, that's a fair argument if it was actually true, but it just goes back to the point that farmers aren't doing it because it makes them money. They do it because it's their livelihood. It's because that's what they do. That's what they do. It's what they're born into. It's what they live for. It's what they care about. And anyone who went through FFA understands that. But a lot of people who didn't go through FFA or who didn't have farm-related families don't get that.
Yeah.
Because they weren't raised around it or because they weren't exposed to it enough as a child.
Think about the people that are, like, fifth generation, like, medical doctors.
Yeah. Like, how do you
it's
not...
It's the same thing.
It is.
If that is your livelihood to be a doctor, by God, go do it.
Right. Like,
if it is your livelihood to be a farmer, by God, go do it.
Yeah. No, it makes no sense. Like, I explain that to people all the time. Because, like, I'll tell people, like, oh, I know about a friend of mine who his family's having to shut down their farm. They can't afford to keep the bills up anymore. And a lot of farmers are going through that same struggle. They're having their farms taken up by urban sprawl or regulations killing them, or, the economy's plummeting, and so a lot of them are just losing their land or losing their animals or whatever the case may be. And so I always, like, I have, like, my non-ag friends ask me, like, why would anyone want to do that? Like, why is anyone farming? And I'm like, you should ask the golden question. Why would anyone want to be a farmer? And it's an honest question. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, to put yourself through that much stress on that much uncertainty if it were to make you rich. It's not about the money. It's about the livelihood. And it's about the culture. It's about the tradition.
Yeah.
And it's about feeding the world. Our ultimate purpose here is to feed the world. And people don't understand that. So that's my rant for the day. I just wanted to wrap up on that one. So if you have any more points you want to add to the farmers being evil thing?
I don't know. I just think, like, as you were saying all of that, I'm picturing, like, the dairy farmers that live around us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the chicken farm in Wasco. Think about my uncle. He farms. He's a dairyman. I've been to multiple states seeing different kinds of agriculture, and it's just, they're there, they're living their passion. That is their passion in life.
It is.
And they're doing it, man.
Yep.
Like, that is their dream, and they went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're having a ball. I mean, except for the days that they're not so good.
Sure,
but, like,
bad things happen.
But, I mean, they're just going... Even seeing, like, international agriculture, it's the same thing. They are all there for the purpose of feeding the world, feeding their family, and doing what they love to do every single day.
Yep.
Without missing a beat.
Yep. And if you've ever met a retired farmer, they're so bored. Like, all they want to do is farming. They just want to go back to farming because that's all that they knew and that's all they love to do.
Well, and it's hard work. I mean, I don't think people realize how much hard work goes into actually being a farmer.
No.
And it's taken for granted so much.
It is. It really is.
I mean, thinking about it, my mom... I know my mom's not a farmer. I mean, we have a business. We're an agriculture business.
She might as well be with this.
But she's all, I'm a busy person.
Right.
I have to be doing something. I cannot just sit at home.
No.
And do nothing.
Because that's not how she
That's
is.
That's not how her brain works.
No.
So she's all, you know what she's gonna do when she's old? She's gonna join a bingo club and she's gonna golf.
Oh, man.
And she's just gonna hang out with her friends, man. Like,
nice.
She's just gonna be doing her thing.
Good for Tina.
She could go hang out with little, like, she could babysit still.
Yeah.
She could go be a teacher's aide.
Yeah.
And just, like, hang out with little kids.
That sounds great.
That's still spreading love. It's spreading knowledge. That is what she was built for. She's built to be a busy person and do a whole bunch of different stuff. Farmers the exact same way. I do not know a farmer who loves to just sit at home on the couch.
No, it drives him nuts.
For days at a time just watching the TV. I get it. Like on a Sunday afternoon you want to watch a game.
Sure.
Have at it.
But by Monday morning, like, they're ready to go.
They're ready to go back to work.
They can't get back to their cows fast enough. Like, it's just...
I agree.
So... Alright. So... That's about it, I think, for this episode.
I think so, too. That was great.
That was a good conversation. We had some really good myths to bust there, and I think that...
You didn't do your...
Oh, yeah. All right, so for all of the myths in this episode, since I only did it once, I keep forgetting. Next episode, remind me to do it more.
Okay.
But
I'm so... give you, like, a sign.
Yeah, so for all of the myths in this episode, myth...
Busted.
All right. So that's all I've got. I don't know if Abby wants to add anything else.
I am so grateful that y'all are listening to this.
Yes.
This is some good information.
It is really good information, and it's needed. We need to talk about these things more. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for all of the myths you sent in. I hope I got everybody. We're going to get back to those two that we talked about in the next episode. And this is going to be, or next episode is going to be the last episode in the mini-series, the Ag Mythbusters mini-series. I can't talk sometimes. But, so I hope you guys all enjoyed and tune into the next one. And give us more myths if you can find any. Please, this is so much fun. I love doing really this. And so, after this mini-series is over, maybe we'll bring it back one day. You never know. So find some more myths for us. But that's all I've got. That's all I have. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, thank all of you so much for listening. And don't forget, if you ate today, thank a farmer.